Some of this may be classified, so be careful with it.
Okay.
Folks, this is big. After years of President Biden insisting he never knowingly kept classified material or shared it with his ghostwriter, new recordings changed the entire story, and we think Joe would be pretty disappointed about it.
When you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago, what did you think to yourself?
How anyone could be that irresponsible?
And today, we're breaking down a story that's getting very little attention. So let's start with the newly released recordings.
But I have extensive notes
Right. Okay.
over this period of time.
You actually have those here.
Yeah, now there's a lot of other notes too, but I mean,
Okay.
this is they didn't even know I have this. So this was early on, in '09, I just found all the classified stuff downstairs. I wrote the president a handwritten 40-page memorandum arguing against deploying additional troops to to Afghanistan, on the grounds that it wouldn't matter. And then next thing I have here is this is classified. It goes with the 26th. I had a long call with Arseniy Yatsenyuk. He told me they'd formed a government. They'd agreed on a new speaker and an agenda. He said, I'm, quote, keeping my commitment to you that you asked me to do on our ride to the airport. Remember I talked about the ride to the airport?
Yeah.
I thanked him for following through.
And that was about corruption and...
That was specifically about sticking with Poroshenko.
Okay.
And not calling for elections and not campaigning separately, campaigning together. Some of this may be classified, so be careful with
Okay.
it.
Just to be clear, those were only short snippets because the full recordings run for hours. They were released by the Oversight Project after more than 2 years of litigation, and they capture conversations between Biden and his ghostwriter from 2016 and 2017. Another fun fact about these recordings is that once the ghostwriter learned a special counsel had been appointed to investigate whether Biden retained or shared classified material, he deleted them. The FBI later recovered them, and they ultimately became part of the investigation. The audio also backs up special counsel Hur's conclusion that Biden was struggling to remember events, exhibiting diminished faculties, and having painfully slow conversations as early as 2016. Skipping over the sections muted by the DOJ because they contain classified information or highly sensitive personal information, like the death of his son, Beau, you can hear Joe taking long pauses and at times losing his train of thought. It's something which was at full display throughout his presidency. But if we rewind to 2024, Biden insisted he had done nothing wrong.
Do you take responsibility for at least being careless with classified material?
I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing. It goes in and points out things that appeared in my garage, things that came out of my home, things that were moved not by me, but my staff.
President, why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter?
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
But the special counsel said in the report
he
that he
did not say that.
Okay.
He did not say that.
But Mr. President,
Let me answer your question. The fact of the matter is, what I didn't want repeated, I didn't want him to know, and I didn't read it to him.
Joe probably never expected these recordings to see the light of day. Besides acknowledging he had classified material that, in his own words, they didn't know I have, he also discussed many sensitive conversations with world leaders and other politicians. The example involving the Ukrainian prime minister we played at the start, that was just one of several. The biggest takeaway from the Hur report was the decision not to prosecute Biden because he would likely present himself to the jury, as he did during his interview with our office, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with poor memory. The problem was that the report came out while Biden was still running for re-election. At that point, admitting his mental decline wasn't an option. So Garland went into full damage control mode, offering one explanation after another for why these recordings should never have become public.
We have gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure that the committee gets responses to its legitimate requests for information. That is why I have provided the committee with Special Counsel Hur's report, and why we have gone beyond precedent to provide the committee with the transcripts of the Special Counsel's interview with the President. But we have made clear that we will not provide audio recordings from which the transcripts that you already have were created. Releasing the audio would chill cooperation with the department in future investigations, and it could influence witnesses' answers if they thought the audio of their law enforcement interviews would be broadcast to Congress and the public.
Garland was deliberately blurring the line between two completely different things: Biden's interview with Special Counsel Hur and his conversations with his ghostwriter. Joe's legal team also fought to keep those tapes under wraps, arguing their release isn't about transparency, it's about politics. But they finally backed down after the appeals court rejected those claims. Obviously, the former president wouldn't be prosecuted because these recordings aren't new evidence. Hur already had access to them during his investigation, and the statute of limitations has long since expired. But it does give the public an insight into what happened and cast the Democratic Party's reaction to the Hur report, I think, in a very different light, especially the way figures like Jay Appel and Nadler rushed to dismiss it.
President Biden acted responsibly, cooperated completely, and the decision to decline criminal charges was relatively straightforward. In short, to borrow a phrase from the last administration, the Hur report represents the complete and total exoneration of President Biden.
Is it correct that, as it says in the first sentence of your executive summary, that your investigation concluded with an assessment that, quote, no criminal charges are warranted in this matter?
Correct.
So this lengthy, expensive, and independent investigation resulted in a complete exoneration of President Joe Biden. For every document you discussed in your report, you found insufficient evidence that the president violated any laws about possession or retention of classified materials.
I need to go back and make sure that I take note of the word that you used, exoneration. That is not a word that
I'm going to
continue
with my questions. I'm going to continue with my questions. I know that the term
I ultimately reached
I know that
whether
the term
sufficient evidence existed such that the likely outcome
you exonerated
would be a conviction.
I know that
did not
the term
exonerate him.
willful
That word does not appear in
retention
the
has a
report, Congresswoman.
Mr. Hur, it's my time.
Those two little clips capture a pattern that we watched play out throughout the Biden administration. Time and time again, Americans were told not to trust what they could plainly see or hear for themselves. And if they questioned the official narrative, they were gaslit, talked over, or accused of spreading misinformation until they either stayed quiet or went along with it. What's really weird is how little attention these tapes have received from the mainstream media. Actually, scratch that. That's not weird at all. That makes total sense. So, you've learned something now that millions of their viewers never will. If you want to keep this kind of hard-hitting reporting alive, hit that subscribe button, turn the notification on so you don't miss our next video, and remember, you heard it here at the Dais.